Sup, everyone? It's Mr. Miller. Today we are going to talk about our author for our story. Her name is Thailand Lai. It's an odd name in English, but she is not from America. She is from Vietnam, so her name is Vietnamese. So I don't really know what that means. If you really wanted to, you could look it up, I suppose. I'm not going to. But anyway, so our author was born in 1965 in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. So her family fled Vietnam actually because her father was in the Southern Vietnamese army and fought against the Communist Party. They had to leave the country because when the communists took over, they were killing anybody who was associated with the South Vietnamese government or military. They were killing families, not just like members of the army. They weren't taking prisoners. They were just mowing people down. It was really, really sad. So, Lai and her family were actually one of the lucky groups of refugees. Like there were millions of people left behind and only a couple 100,000 were able to leave. They were able to escape on an American military boat, but there was thousands of people on the ship with them, and they were stuck at sea for months, and the conditions were horrific, not on purpose. They just were because the American military couldn't like support having that many people on boats, and they were doing it to save people's lives. But like it was really hot on the boats, people didn't have a lot of food, a lot of people would die on the boat because of heat and exhaustion. It's really, really sad. Many of Lai's family almost did die, but luckily none of them did. So also, Lai and her family eventually would be able to move to Alabama as refugees. Please keep this in mind, though, that when she moves to Alabama, this is during the 1960s when the civil rights movement was going on. So there was a lot of unrest, kind of like there was earlier this year in Kenosha and other parts around the country. And they're about civil rights. But here's the deal that Lai's family was discriminated against by both whites and African Americans because she is from Vietnam and the war was just wrapping up, and people saw people from Vietnam, regardless of who they were, as bad. Human beings have a tendency to always make people that like in war, like we demonize other people, and the United States did a really good job of being very racist towards Asians of any kind during Vietnam, even if they weren't from Asia. So she had to deal with being discriminated and picked on by like everybody pretty much when they came there, and they didn't really have a choice because they're refugees. And I don't know if you know this about refugees, but they don't really get to say where they go. They just get to go somewhere and they're safe, and that's pretty much it. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be treated equally either. So keep that in mind, please. So Lai would grow up though, and she would go to college in Texas and graduate with a degree in journalism. She would then move to California where she worked at a newspaper. She would get her master's degree in New York. So she went from Alabama to Texas, then to California, then to New York. Okay. And then it took her years and years to write Inside Out and Backing, which is the book we're reading, but she wrote it so she could describe the horrors of the Vietnam War as well as how bad racism is in the United States to other groups of people minus African Americans and white people. So that's why she wrote it. Inside Out and Back Again has won many awards over the years and considered to be one of the best books about the Vietnam War ever written. So it is really, I personally really like the book. I think it's very interesting, and I hope you guys like it as well. And if you don't, well, I guess that's tough. So anyway, here is a picture of her, just so you kind of know what she looks like. She is still alive. She's really not that old, so keep that in mind. So now we're going to talk about the book. The book Inside Out and Back Again is based off Lai's life, but it's not 100% real. Like there's certain events that are real in her life and some that aren't. Some of the characters are real and some are fake. She did this because she wanted to have her life in the story but not be 100% true either. So it's called historical fiction. It is not going to be 100% true. I will let you know when we're reading what is true and what is not true. All right. So Inside Out and Back Again is not a regular book in itself because it's written in free verse poetry, which I'll discuss right now. So free verse poetry is a type of poetry where there's no rhythm and meter. So all that stuff we learned in poetry earlier doesn't apply. Okay, I did say it in the poetry unit that we would be talking about free verse poetry, and that's a little bit different, but it's not that complicated to understand once you really get your head around it. So free verse poems do not have a rhyme scheme. So like they don't go A, B, B, or A, B, A, B like we talked about. They just go in whatever direction they want to. They do have lines and stanzas though. So like this example here, the fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches and then moves on. This is one stanza, and I can count the lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 lines. So it still follows basic poetry, and there still is figurative language. So example, like the fog comes, like the fog is not coming, it just kind of appears. All right. So that is free verse poetry, and that is what the book is like pretty much. This example is not from the book. It is just an example I found of free verse poetry. But depending on how you look at it, the book goes by really quickly because every chapter is just like a couple of poems. So it's very easy to digest and read. So I think I really like it because it's out of the ordinary, but that's just me. You'll have to determine it for yourself. Anyway, thank you for watching this video.